Your t-shirt may have traveled more of the world than you have, not because it is expensive, not because it is rare, but because one of the simplest things in your closet is actually the end result of a massive international relay race involving farms, factories, cargo ships, ports, trucks, warehouses, and stores spread across multiple continents. What looks like a basic piece of fabric is really a global system stitched together by speed, cheap labor, industrial machinery, and logistics so precise that a delay in one country can affect what ends up on a shelf thousands of miles away. And once you follow the journey of a single t-shirt, it starts to feel less like clothing and more like a passport with sleeves. A plain t-shirt seems simple. Cotton, thread, dye, sewing, shipping, done. But the weird part is that almost none of those steps need to happen in the same place. In fact, they usually do not. The raw material might come from one country, the yarn from another, the fabric from a third, the sewing from a fourth, and the final sale from somewhere else entirely. So before your shirt ever ends up folded in a drawer, it can cross oceans, pass through dozens of hands, and rack up a travel history that sounds almost ridiculous for something sold in a shopping mall for $10. The journey usually begins in a cotton field. A lot of t-shirts start with cotton grown in countries like India, China, the United States, Pakistan, Brazil, or parts of Africa. Cotton sounds natural and simple, and it is, in one sense. It is just a fluffy plant fiber. But growing enough cotton for the global clothing industry is a huge industrial operation. Fields can stretch for miles. Seeds are planted with precision equipment. Irrigation, fertilizers, pesticides, and timing all matter, because this is not just farming. This is the first link in a giant manufacturing chain. Once the cotton is ready, it gets harvested, often by machines that strip the plants at high speed. Then it goes to a gin, which has nothing to do with the drink and everything to do with separating cotton fibers from seeds and plant debris. This is where the soft white material starts becoming something industry can actually use. That sounds simple until you see what happens next. The clean cotton is packed into enormous bales, each weighing hundreds of pounds, then sold into a global commodity market. At this point, the cotton is no longer just a crop from a local farm. It becomes part of a worldwide pricing system. Traders, mills, manufacturers, and brands all care about the cost, quality, and timing. A shirt sold in Europe or America may already be tied to price fluctuations from weather, fuel, labor, and trade policy on the other side of the planet. Then those cotton bales move to spinning mills. This step might happen in the same country where the cotton was grown, but very often it does not. Cotton can be shipped abroad to places with major textile industries where factories specialize in turning loose fiber into yarn. Inside spinning mills, the fluffy cotton gets opened, cleaned again, straightened, stretched, and twisted into thread at astonishing speed. Huge machines run for hours, sometimes all day and all night, transforming raw fiber into cones of yarn that look neat, compact, and harmless, even though they represent an incredible amount of machinery and power consumption. Most people never think about this part. When you hold a t-shirt, you do not see cotton plants. You do not picture giant spinning frames in a hot industrial building. But without this stage, the shirt does not exist, and the yarn is still not the shirt. Next comes knitting or weaving. Though for many t-shirts, knitting is the star of the show. That is because t-shirt fabric is usually made from knitted cotton jersey, which gives it that soft, stretchy feel. In a textile mill, giant circular knitting machines pull yarn into loops over and over again, creating long tubes or rolls of fabric. If you watch one of these machines in action, it looks like the fabric is appearing out of nowhere. Yarn goes in, and a wearable surface starts growing in real time. But here is where the whole system changes. Fabric is not enough. It still has to be treated, washed, dyed, and finished. And this step is one of the most resource-heavy parts of the entire journey. Textile dyeing and finishing plants use large amounts of water, chemicals, heat, and energy. Raw knitted fabric can be bleached, softened, colored, shrunk on purpose so it behaves later, and treated so it feels smoother or holds its shape better. A white t-shirt and a black t-shirt may begin with the same base fabric but once dyeing starts, they can take very different production paths. This is also one of the most sensitive steps in the supply chain, because mistakes here are expensive. If the wrong shade is used, or the fabric shrinks too much, or the finish feels off, entire batches can be rejected. A t-shirt brand may want one exact color, not almost the same blue, one exact feel, not close enough. And because fashion runs on consistency, mills have to reproduce the same result over and over, even when raw materials and conditions are never perfectly identical. That would already be complicated enough, but it gets worse. Now the fabric has to become actual garments. Rolls of finished fabric are sent to apparel factories, often in countries where labor-intensive sewing work is cheaper. Think Bangladesh, Vietnam, Cambodia, Turkey, India, or other major garment hubs. This is where your t-shirt starts looking like something you would actually recognize. First, large layers of fabric are spread out on cutting tables. Then cutting machines slice through stacks of material to create sleeves, front panels, back panels, collars, and trim pieces in bulk. One wrong cut can ruin dozens of shirts at once, so accuracy matters. After that, bundles of matching pieces move through sewing lines, where workers and machines handle different steps in sequence. One station joins shoulders, another attaches sleeves, another closes side seams, another stitches the neckband, another hems the bottom. A shirt is simple compared with a jacket or a pair of jeans, but when you multiply one simple design by tens of thousands of units, simplicity becomes scale, and scale creates its own kind of complexity. This next step is where things get interesting. Even after the shirt is sewn, it still is not done. It gets trimmed, inspected, ironed or steamed, folded, tagged, packed and boxed. Quality control teams check for crooked seams, holes, stains, bad sizing, or color issues. Because a cheap t-shirt still has to survive being tried on. Bought, washed, worn, and judged by a customer who may spend 3 seconds deciding whether it is worth taking home. Then the cartons are loaded for export. And this is where the humble t-shirt turns into a logistics story. Those boxes may be trucked from the factory to a port, loaded into shipping containers, stacked onto a cargo ship, and sent across major trade routes that connect Asia, Europe, North America, the Middle East, and beyond. One container can hold an enormous quantity of clothing. From a distance, it all looks efficient and clean. Containers move, ships sail, goods arrive, but global shipping is a chain of vulnerable steps. A port backlog, customs delay, labor strike, storm, fuel spike, or paperwork error can slow the whole thing down. Clothing brands build entire business models around predicting these risks. Because if winter shirts arrive after winter, or summer basics show up too late, that is not just inconvenient, that is money lost. And the strange part is that many consumers never notice any of this. You walk into a store, see a stack of shirts in perfect sizes, colors, and packaging, and it feels normal. But behind that calm display is a supply network that may have been in motion for months. Most people also do not realize how many different companies can touch one shirt before it reaches them. Farmers grow the cotton, gins process it, traders sell it, mills spin it. Textile factories knit and dye it. Garment factories cut and sew it. Packaging suppliers provide labels, tags, and bags. Freight companies move it. Ports handle it. Warehouses sort it. Retailers display it. E-commerce systems list it. Delivery drivers bring it to your door. So when you buy a t-shirt, you are not really buying one object from one maker. You are buying the final visible piece of a hidden industrial collaboration. And this is where the real question shows up. Why does the system work this way at all? Why not just make the whole thing in one place? Sometimes brands do try to shorten the chain, but in many cases each country in the journey is there for a reason. One place may grow cotton efficiently, another may have giant spinning capacity, another may specialize in dyeing, another may offer lower cost garment labor. Another may be the target consumer market with powerful retail networks. Globalization did not make the t-shirt supply chain messy by accident. It made it specialized. That specialization can lower costs and increase output. It helps companies produce huge volumes at prices people are used to paying. But it also means distance, dependence, and fragility. A problem in one area can echo through the whole system. Suddenly, a crop issue in one region, a shipping disruption in another, or a factory shut down somewhere else becomes your empty shelf, delayed order, or rising price. And then there is the part people really do not like thinking about: waste, because not every shirt gets sold. Some are overproduced, some are returned, some are damaged, some sit in warehouses, some are discounted until there is almost no profit left. A t-shirt that traveled across the world can still end up as waste in the very market it was shipped to serve, which means all the farming, water, dye, labor, fuel, and transport behind it were real, even if the shirt itself ends up forgotten, buried, or burned. That is the hidden truth inside a basic cotton tee. It is not just soft fabric. It is agriculture, chemistry, labor economics, container shipping, industrial engineering, trade policy, and consumer behavior, all compressed into one item you can buy almost without thinking. And maybe that is the most fascinating part. The more ordinary a product looks, the more invisible the system behind it becomes. A t-shirt feels simple because the complexity has been pushed out of sight, out to the fields, mills, ports, factories, highways, warehouses, and shipping lanes that quietly keep modern life running. Your shirt does not advertise any of that. It just hangs there on a rack, pretending it appeared by magic. But now you know better. That one t-shirt may have started as a plant in one country, become yarn in another, turned into fabric in another, been sewn in another, shipped across an ocean, sorted in a warehouse, stacked in a store, and finally carried home by you, all before its first wash. So the next time you pull on a plain t-shirt, remember that you are wearing one of the most traveled everyday objects on Earth. And if you want more stories about the hidden systems behind ordinary things, subscribe and keep exploring with Curious Eagle.